here installed?
I sure can, Gordon. So this is the Savant PS20 power system. In this room, we have the inverters and the batteries, and just a quick explanation at a high level here. What we have is we have 8 inverters that each have a rated capacity of 12.5 kilowatts. And we have 4 battery cabinets, each of which have 20 kilowatt hours of battery storage. So we've got 80 kilowatt hours in total of battery storage between the 4 cabinets. The inverters are actually derated to 9.78 kilowatts each. And the reason for that is our total generation capacity that was approved by Hydro 1 is 75 kilowatts. So when we multiply 8 by 9.78, I believe that's the math, we get to 75. So 75 kilowatts of total power generation, 80 kilowatt hours of energy storage in the batteries. It means that we have a very meaningful power generating system here, which is required for the home because the home has a 600 amp service coming in. And so in order to supply, even sort of close to that in a grid outage, we have to have a sufficient amount of power output from the system and a sufficient amount of energy storage to be able to supply that power for the length of time that we're aiming for. So that's
the batteries are in here. Is there one great big honking battery? Like if you open it, what's actually inside?
So there are 6 individual battery modules in here, and essentially they're the width of the cabinet, and then they're about that high. And so the reason for that is they're modular. If we have an issue with any one cell, we can pull that out and we can replace it. There's also a battery management system module in each one of these. So the battery management system module ensures that the voltage between all of the individual battery cells, the other 6 cells in here, is regulated and it's at the same level. And then it's also regulating the charge and the discharge to ensure that it's protecting the cells from thermal runaway and things like that. The chemistry in here is lithium iron phosphate. So it's the most stable battery chemistry on the market right now. It is the least hazardous in terms of thermal runaway and potential fire. The actual risk of fire with lithium iron phosphate is near zero. Nothing is zero. Steel burns if it gets hot enough. But unlike nickel, manganese, cobalt, which is what the alternative is for lithium batteries typically on the market right now, lithium iron phosphate batteries have a very, very high threshold for temperature and a very low risk of fire.
What is the operating range for temperature?
So the operating range is 0 degrees plus 50 Celsius. And the reason it's 0 degrees is once they get down below 0, their efficiency drops off. And so these are kind of the trade-offs when we talk about different chemistries. Nickel, manganese, cobalt can operate down to minus 20, and it can operate up to plus 50, but it has a higher risk of a thermal event and a higher risk of fire should there be a puncture or damage to the casing because it has manganese, and as soon as that's exposed to air, it ignites. And so we don't have that risk with lithium iron, but one of the trade-offs is the operating temperature has to be 0 or above, which you've managed to achieve very nicely in this room by
doing some venting. Maybe I'll step in here.
Go ahead.
Is this one fan controlled by Savant in the ceiling, vents to outside, so we'll use that in the summer. And then we also have another fan in the wall that vents into the main part of the barn and then draws back in. We'll use that one more in the winter because we want the room to be warm. So hopefully with these, we don't require cooling and things like that. It'll just be venting. Now I mentioned Savant. There's 2 different apps. Can you explain what is SPS, what it does, and what the main Savant app does?
Yeah, for sure. So SPS was the software that sort of came over from PalmCube, which was the company that Savant acquired in order to be able to start to offer this solution. And so that's still the software that's used to program and commission and change settings in the battery and in the PS20. Ultimately, the plan is for that to merge with Savant's other proprietary native software, which is now, it's called the Savant OS, and we're at 11.05, 11.0.5, and 11.1 is the planned sort of merge where SPS and Savant OS will sort of become one and available in one app. But for now, the SPS app is where we do things like we set backup reserve percentage. So we're preserving 20% of the total storage in each of these battery cabinets so that if the grid goes out, you have power storage available. We set things like when to charge, when to discharge from the grid, if we're using that to rate arbitrage, which you are, and we'll get into that, I think, in a little bit. We set where the generator comes on if we're in off-grid mode and we don't have a bright sunny day, we're not generating lots of power with the solar, the generator can come on. So that's where all of those settings are made, is in the SPS app. The Savant Pro app is where we see the operation of the system in its
And maybe
entirety.
we could actually have a look at that in the energy section. The system right now, the house is consuming 3.6 kilowatts. Solar is generating about 14 kilowatts. The batteries are in use, but they're 100% charged, and we're exporting 10 kilowatts to the grid. And you can see live consumption. You can see we actually are running water right now for hydro, and the batteries we have with SPS charged up to 100% around 5:30 this morning while we have inexpensive overnight power. So great, user interface for the homeowner to see what's going on in the system and control things.
Yes, and in there you can create scenes that either fire manually or automatically based on time of day or celestial event, where you can conserve power, you can shut circuits on and off, and you can control your peaks, which is really important when we're in an emergency or an off-grid scenario. We've lost grid power, the grid's gone down, which you've experienced here a few times with that windstorm that came through in the late spring, knocked power out in the area for several days. So you want the ability to be able to manage your power consumption in the home through a combination of automatic process and then manual influence, depending on what the weather conditions are.
Actually,
outside.
the learning experience through that